guest is Torry Martin.
Learning is a little bit easier if you can laugh while you're doing it.
When wrong seems right, convictions must be strong. Pierce the darkness with the light as you go along. Living with one foot in heaven, breaking the enemy's power. In the strength of Jesus we can stand in the darkest hour. Living with one foot in heaven, ready when he calls our name. For believers to live is Christ, to die is only gain.
Welcome to Heritage of Truth. Today our guest is Torry Martin. Now, Torry, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I write for the show Adventures in Odyssey, produced by Focus on the Family. I created the character of Wooten Bassett for the program. And I also write comedy sketchbooks for Lillinus Drama Publishing. Lillinus is the largest Christian drama publisher in the nation. And I'm working on a novel with Doug Peterson, who's written over 50 VeggieTale books, and a children's series with Doug Peterson. And I'm currently working on a variety of screenplays, 7 completed, with my wonderful, talented writing partner, Marshall Younger, who's written over 100 episodes of Adventures in Odyssey and directed them as well. And
Wonderful.
I also teach classes on networking and sketch writing and discovering your calling.
And you are very humorous as a teacher, too. I know that people who
Is that because I'm woefully unprepared, unintentionally, or
I don't know,
yeah.
but I have heard you teach, and you really are fun.
I think that learning is a little bit easier if you can laugh while you're doing it.
Absolutely. With that in mind, how can, here at Heritage of Truth, we're all about getting deeper in our faith, living that faith out in our culture, and passing it on to the upcoming generations. So how can you use laughter to do that?
To pass on
The heritage of truth that's found in God's Word.
I think laughter is just a part of being real.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard TV shows that use canned laughter?
Yes.
It doesn't have a ring of authenticity
No,
to it,
doesn't.
and it seems false, and it sort of annoys you when you hear it, because it's always like, oh, that's when I guess I should have laughed. I think there's a lot of Christians who are like canned laughter. They've got a canned answer, a canned response, a canned truth. And I think once they let go of the canned answers and start sharing from their heart, that not only does real laughter then flow out of a joyful heart, but so does a real conversation about a very real God.
Yes, great answer. Thank you. So the dramas that you write, now I know you do Adventures in Odyssey, you've written for them. And,
I'm writing for Clubhouse magazine now, Wooten's
Yeah.
Random Ramblings. See, I have chronic ADHD and OCD combined. My friend Amber's going to be here, I guess she'll tell you a little bit about my OCD. I'm kind of a neat freak when it comes to my house. But I'm writing for Clubhouse, so Wooten has a sort of form of ADD too. So his column is Wooten's Random Ramblings. And you never know exactly where he's going, but somehow he ends up making a point at the end. I kind of do the same thing.
I bet kids really enjoy that.
They do. I think they relate. They relate well to it. Yeah.
Okay. And you think you came up with Wooten just because he matches your personality so much?
No, well, Paul McCusker, writing for Adventures in Odyssey was really hard for me at first. They had this whole history of the show.
Yeah.
And they gave me every episode of Adventures in Odyssey written when I was driving from Alaska, first moving to Tennessee, so I could get familiar with the show. But some of the characters like Whit, Mr. Whitaker, and Connie and Eugene are so precise that you've got to really know those characters to write for them. And Eugene, I don't know if you know Eugene Meltzer or not, but he's like this cerebral brainiac type thing. He uses these really big words. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to write for Eugene. And Paul said that I think we'd like to create a character based on you. Might make it easier for you to write that character, but we don't have anyone like you in Odyssey either. And I've told this story before, but I remember not understanding what he meant by somebody based on me or like me, because you don't know I don't know how people perceive me. I don't walk around thinking of myself as overweight. Inside of my body, I'm really different. When I see a mirror, I'm like, ah! But until then, I don't. So I don't know what people see when they look at me, because I don't see myself that way. I'm living me. So I asked Paul, a person who I respected, like, what would that character be like? And Paul said, well, he would be bumbling, bizarre, gullible, and naive. And that was the first time that I heard myself described like that by someone that I respected. And I'm the type of person who hardly ever got one compliment, but 4 in a row. I was blown away. So that's the character.
Okay. How do you think what you do in writing sketches and scripts and that kind of thing can contribute to passing on God's word in our culture, a culture where God is pretty much being kicked out?
That's a really intelligent question. I'm not sure I can even answer it the way. Let me just try.
So just
I'll
do
tell
it
you.
from
I'll
the
try to
heart.
explain to you what I do with my comedy sketches.
Okay.
I only write about things that I know and things that I experienced. I find that as a writer, if I make an emotional connection to something, it's easier to then take that emotional connection and put it into my writing because I know what the emotional connection for the audience will be, and it comes across as real. Some people get a theme. We'd like you to write about this theme, and you try to write it, and it comes out phony because it's not really you. With my sketches, I would listen to my pastor, Pastor Aiken, who is a wordsmith, and he would give these fantastic sermons that I would then sit and think about, but because I have ADHD, it's hard for me to retain information and share it intelligently. So I would then have to go home and break it down into a way that I could remember it and understand it. And for me, I used to journal a lot. I would write out in a sketch form, using humor, the exact truth the pastor had taught me that Sunday. And I would put it in a comical situation where it's just two people conversing and reveal the truth at the end through that. I'm very much, I respond more to parables than to sermons. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes.
And I think
that's why Jesus used them.
I think he used both. You know,
Yeah.
we know he used both. But so many churches like, we'll just do the sermons without a drama sketch to accompany it. And some drama people are like, we don't need the sermons, we can say it in the sketch. I think you need both. You need the illustration. I mean, one of the moments in church that you lean forward is when the pastor says in the middle of his sermon, I remember when I was 12 and I had this neighbor named Mr.
He
Oliver.
starts telling a
You
story.
lean forward because you want to hear the story, and then he comes back to the sermon, and they just go hand in hand. I love that. So that's what I try to do with sketches, to relate to the person where they are now in this generation using our culture, and then taking the Bible verse or the biblical truth and connecting the two in a non-threatening way.
That's really good. Do you have anything else that you'd like to comment on? Do you have any, you don't have any books coming out or books of sketches or anything?
No, right now I'm really excited about the screenplays that I'm working on
Okay.
with the amazing Marcia Younger, working with Renee Guttridge, who's one of my favorite writers, on a novelization of one of the screenplays. That's exciting.
Oh, that'll be fun.
I have this book of Moose and Men with Doug Peterson that Zondervan is looking at now. They just had a meeting, we're waiting to hear back. Lots of opportunities. I write for Encourse magazine for teens too.
Okay, and we are going to have, is it the editor?
The editor, Amber Wiegand Buckley. Yes,
Yes.
she's also one of my best friends. I always tell people she's the sister I never wanted. But you're going to really, really like her. She's awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Torry, for being our guest today.
Well, you're welcome. It was a
Really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, look forward to seeing you again.
Cool.